As we get closer to the midterm elections this November, the crisis on the border is shaping up to be a big election topic. A new Gallup poll finds 17% of voters say illegal immigration is our country's #1 issue. That's up 12% from just last month, and the highest immigration is ranked in the Gallup survey since 2006. What does it mean in 4 months when voters go to the polls? Joining us now, Charlie Hurt, a columnist for the Washington Times, and Juan Williams. He is a familiar face and a Fox News political analyst. What about it, Juan? The article that accompanied this poll suggested that polling on immigration is usually kind of a flash in the pan, that it holds people's interests for a short time and then they move on to other issues. Is this something that people are still going to be fired up about in November?
Well, it's no way to be certain, John, but I will say that it definitely fired them up. If you go back to 2010, when Arizona changed some of its laws, it fired them up. Back in 2006, when President Bush tried to pass immigration reform. And historically, you know, if you have a situation where voters are split on which party is doing a better job of handling the top issue, that's pretty good news for Republicans. Oftentimes that means Republicans are going to rack up some big victories in the midterms.
Charlie, it also, the polling indicates that this issue is more of an issue for Republicans and that they traditionally want sealing the border as the response, where Democrats are more interested in dealing with those who are already here. We're also looking at some of the other top issues that people placed as their #1. Congress and leadership in government comes in with a 16% number right now. Charlie, what do you think about that? Is this more of an issue for Republican voters?
Well, absolutely, John. I think that that obviously the conservatives get a whole lot more revved up about this, especially right now, where we see these children pouring over the border. But I would actually argue, John, that you know, politicians in Washington have been misreading the voters' attitudes on this for years, perhaps for decades. You know, normally, under normal times, you know, immigration doesn't reach a fever pitch for a lot of voters. But that doesn't mean that voters are in favor of legalizing 12 million illegals. It does mean that they are very much in favor of bringing some sort of sanity to the border, where we you know, you can't seal it perfectly, but you know, when you use a process of sealing the border and internal enforcement and prohibiting employers from hiring illegals, you know, you could do a lot to stop this problem from happening in the first place. You know, Google comes up with a map that takes a picture of every house in America. You mean to tell me that we can't figure out a way to stop people from pouring over the border? And that, I think, becomes a very, very important issue for conservatives, but also for a lot of Democrats and a lot of moderates. This is something that cuts along, you know, across the partisan divide very much. And Democrats run a great risk if they ignore that.
Are there any Democrats out there, Juan, who are going to suggest that this flood of illegal immigrants, especially the young people and their mothers in some cases, are there any candidates who are going to argue that's a good thing?
No, I think that, you know, what you're seeing here in the polling, John, is people over 50, people who are Republicans and Westerners have the greatest concern. So you will get some folks like Congressman Cuellar, who right now is working on a bill with Senator Cornyn, both from Texas, looking at ways, for example, to alter the existing law with regard to the due process given to children coming across the border. I think you're seeing that kind of attitude reflected in the polls. There's that willingness. Now, let me just say, I think that when you look at these numbers, when you look at especially the difference in who approves and who disapproves, you see, just as Charlie was saying, a higher level of concern about immigration among Republicans. It revs up the base going towards the midterm. A lower level of concern among Democrats over the issue. And especially when it comes to the handling of these children, no one specifically has an idea about how to deal with it. And I think you're just seeing immigration rise to be the #1 issue in the country because everyone's frustrated, alarmed at what's going on there. It's not that people are confusing it with the pre-existing problem over the 12 million illegal immigrants in the country. They're really, I think, just concerned at the moment that people don't seem to have answers to this specific issue with the kids.
Well, it's a big issue right now, and it's really going all across the country as some of these kids get bused into places far from the border. Juan
and
Williams,
a lot of them are, and you have deaths on the border, and it's a real tragedy.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. Juan Williams, Charlie Hurd, thank you both.
Thank you, John.